Hello, Twitter world. Good evening, everyone. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? All right. I'll assume the audio is working. Dad? Nobody's dad. Thank you. By the way, people, I don't know if we need to transcribe all the all the periscopes. That's a little intimidating, and someone's going to take something out of context. So I'd rather, if people want to watch it, they should just watch it. I think if they need the bite-sized snippets, then maybe it's not for them. How do I keep from overthinking? Prediction: I'm bored. Yes, I am bored. Why else would I be on here? Don't actually want anything from anyone, so boredom is kind of the only thing that drags me to do anything, really. I have not read the entire new Taleb book. That's Skin in the Game. I've been reading parts of it. I read big parts of it on the internet when he was posting them as Medium posts. And there are some very, very fundamental things in there, including the minority rule, which I think everyone should understand. Obviously, the skin in the game concept, but he's got a bunch of others. So I would definitely recommend his book, even though I'm not finished with it. But I never finish books consecutively. I'm always reading a bunch of books at a time, and that is one of a bunch of books that I'm reading right now. So yeah. Did I watch the new Silicon Valley episode? I have not yet. I've fallen behind. Silicon Valley, the show, is too close to real life for me, because I know half those people, and that is sort of my life. So if I'm looking for entertainment, I'm trying to get away from it. Also, I kind of don't watch TV anymore. Rick and Morty is the only TV show I watch. Other TV would just be on airplane flights. But I think reality is really interesting for the most part. So I think, I'm not judging TV. I watched a lot of TV as a kid, but I just got over it. So now I just have a hard time taking somebody else's fictional life seriously. And in terms of nonfiction, TV is just a slow mechanism to consume nonfiction. Reading is a lot faster and better. A lot of questions all over the place. Am I long on SF? Why are so many tech people leaving? Well, what's funny is nobody mentions the taxes, but the taxes are a big deal. It's almost like 13-14% on the margin added straight onto federal and not deductible anymore as of the beginning of this year. So I think and the cost of living is insanely high. San Francisco has become a tough place to raise children. There's a severe homeless problem here, there's a severe housing problem. It's not the cleanest city. So I think a lot of people, especially if they're either done doing what they were going to do in the tech business, or if they sort of fail to basically make the money or have the outcome that you need to have to survive in San Francisco, they decided to leave. So a lot of people are reconsidering it, but it's still the reason it's so expensive and it may be a little less desirable than it used to be to live is because there's this mass amount of people still trying to get in. So I don't see that pressure letting off. I think San Francisco is going to do incredibly well. This city is the goose that lays the golden eggs. It has an industry, the tech industry, as its it's a chosen home for the tech industry. So it's not going to disappear anytime soon. That said, I think between ICOs and blockchains, now we're starting to see fundraising emerge in other parts of the world. So I think the internet is emerging as a viable place for startups. I would say about half the interesting blockchain startups I've seen recently are in San Francisco, but half are outside, and that's from a guy who lives in San Francisco. So I think that's heartening. And these are projects that are getting funded. So I think it's becoming very viable to build a blockchain company anywhere in the world, really. But there's a bunch of other hubs. And then I think that fundraising mechanism plus sort of that co-working infrastructure and style of building that people use with blockchains can carry over to the rest of tech. But it's, the hard thing is, so I think you can have companies now that are set up in other locations. There's a separate thing, which is just a scattered company where the team isn't all in the same place. That gets really hard because especially if you're trying to do creative work, you need to synchronize a lot. So the set of companies that can make true remote working work for development and creativity, that's a pretty small set. What about India? Everyone always asks me about India because I'm Indian by origin, and the people ask me about, like, what Indian food do you like? What Indian music do you like? What do you think India should do with politics? The honest truth is I'm disconnected from India. You guys are in India. You know India's issues a lot better than I do. Any sense that I have is going to be almost like a Caucasian American trying to talk about India, but I can try anyway. I mean, from far away, it just seems that India has a lot of corruption, a lot of bureaucracy, high taxes, a lot of anti-business kind of laws, and it's sort of a quasi-socialist country. So it's just really hard to build things there. Like the Reserve Bank of India is just sort of banning crypto exchanges from banks from working with crypto exchanges. Or I remember back in the day that, like, the local eBay founders, like when they put up something on the site that they weren't supposed to, they got arrested, even though it was kind of a free-for-all. Other people were providing the listings. So I think India just makes it hard. Not to say great companies can't be built and don't get built. It's just, India is the largest English-speaking country in the world. There are tons of brilliant STEM graduates. It should be doing a lot better than it is. It should be growing at least like China, if not faster. And the fact that it's not, I think you kind of have to revisit what are the laws and what are the economic choices that India has made that maybe China is no longer making. I wouldn't argue for the authoritarian side of China, but I would argue learning from their economic side. How much of life is believing selling your own bullshit, aggressive advertising? That sounds like a very cynical question that person just kind of asked. It was almost more like a statement. I think the only way you can sell something genuinely is if you yourself believe in it. And people, especially for high-end sales, people know when you're selling something you believe in. And when you believe in it, you can inspire people on a whole different level. I mean, that's what Elon Musk does all day long, right? He basically takes an outrageous vision that shouldn't be possible, and then he just sells it in the hopes that enough smart people, enough money come together that makes it a reality. And he kind of does it in his spare time. He does it mainly with Tesla and SpaceX, but then he does it almost by accident with OpenAI and Hyperloop and Neural Lace and all these other projects that just get inspired by a conversation that he had or a statement or two that he made. So if you truly believe in what you're selling, nobody can compete with you on that sale. And if you're selling things you don't believe it, you might get away with it for a while, but you'll probably get away with it on shitty products, things that don't make a lot of money, and it'll probably end up hurting you in the process. It's kind of a very cynical thing to do, so then you don't even know what you stand for anymore. What do you think about homeschooling versus public schools? I'm not a fan of what I call the industrial educational school system. It has nothing to do with public versus private. There are great public schools. I went to Stuyvesant, which is an incredible public school in New York City, and there are great private schools, obviously. So it's not about the public versus private. It's about the institution itself. And I think schooling serves a combination of functions. It's like daycare plus adults. Daycare for adults, plus it's a signaling value and helps employers curate, and it's a socialization mechanism where people can meet with each other, and then there's an education piece. So over time, education is the hardest thing out of that set. Stamping someone with a signal is just an admissions test. That's easier to do. Socializing is easier to do. Daycare, expensive, takes time, but it's not like incredibly variable in its outcome like an education is. So educating people is actually the hardest thing to do. And having to educate them all at once and do it cheaply is very difficult. So you have 30 students in a class or 50 students in a class, and they're all at different levels. Some are ahead, some are behind. And the teacher just can't adapt to them. And the teacher has to teach a curriculum that is essentially politicized. It's a curriculum that's been negotiated over dozens of years or decades by politicians, by courts, by teachers and parents and unions and all that. So obviously it's not going to be a very efficient learning mechanism. So I think in terms of learning, we have each person. Really, what we should do now, we have the technology for this. We have the technology where everybody should be able to get a free tablet from the state. This is worth it for the state to do this, or charity. And you open up that tablet computer, and it should, within 5 minutes, be able to figure out what language you speak, what proficiency level you're at, in a few various subjects, and basically start educating you on the spot on whatever you want to learn, whatever you're most excited about at that time. So it can say, oh, okay, you're like 7th grade mathematics and your primary language is Hindi. Great, let's start giving you fun video exercises and lessons that'll teach you 8th grade mathematics, assuming you're in the mood right now. And if you're not, then if you're interested in philosophy and you're kind of behind on that, let's have like a nice philosophy lecture for you. So I think it could be mood-based learning, it could be experience-based learning, it could be language-based learning, and it would just kind of help bring people up to the next level. It could do it for like the entire world. I'm gonna have to block some people for saying stupid things. By the way, I love blocking on Twitter. I also love blocking on Periscope. I just blocked somebody for making a stupid comment. So, welcome. Do I believe EOS will compute the Ethereum in the long run? I don't get crypto stock stock tips. I don't manage my own crypto anyway. I go through funds because I don't feel like I know enough. I don't have an opinion on specific coins. I would say, though, in general, that I believe that we're in the phase where blockchains are going to have to earn their keep by being sovereign resistant, rather than platform, have sovereign grade resistance as opposed to having platform grade resistance. And if you don't know what that means, you can Google it or you can go read up. I think Jimmy Song wrote something on it. Larry, I forget his last name, but he's on my crypto list, wrote something on it, on sovereign grade resistance versus platform resistance. And so I think blockchains are going to face attacks by sovereign actors, and that's what's going to separate the winners from the losers. The ones that are truly decentralized will survive, and the ones that are scalable, that are not decentralized, won't. Same time, blockchains have to also deal with scalability, but I think if you're concerned about scalability first and sovereign resistance second, you've kind of gotten it backwards. Because if you aren't sovereign resistant, or if you don't need sovereign resistance, you probably don't need a blockchain. You're probably better off with just a distributed database. Hey, don't shill coins in my feed here, please. I'll block people for that. Do I have a favorite quote or thought that you're grappling with right now? There's not a anything. It's funny. I have a thought, but I'm not grappling with it. And the reason I'm not grappling with it is because I'm trying this on for size. It feels natural. I'm not doing it because I should do it, but because it feels natural to me. Which is, I'm realizing the self-conflict is a complete waste of time. And so all the times when I'm doing something and feeling bad about it, or I'm kind of arguing with myself, or I'm judging myself, I'm just shedding a lot of that. I'm realizing it doesn't do much for me, because at the end of the day, I kind of do what I want anyway. So what's the point in feeling bad about it? A lot of times I think guilt is just society's voice speaking in your head. It's like a programming that's like you've been programmed as a kid to behave, but by now you know how to behave. It's built into your instincts. But I think we beat ourselves up all the time. I beat myself about, when I'm, let's say if I'm not working out when I should be working out, I feel really guilty. If I'm not working hard, I feel guilty. If I'm not eating right, I feel guilty. The reality is I know what eating right is, I know what working out is, I know what working hard is, so I do them when I feel like it. When I don't feel like it, I should just relax and accept it. So I've stopped beating myself up over things. I've even stopped sort of judging myself. So I would say the last few weeks have been very self-conflict free, and it's not out of some training. It's not like I listened to some bullshit guru who said you shouldn't have self-conflict, and so I decided not to have self-conflict. It was more just a gradual series of realizations through observation, through self-observation. Self-conflict is not helping me at all. How do you put your brain in debug mode? It just has to be important to you. You just every time you have a thought and you are aware enough to catch it, you just kind of make sure you look at it and know what that thought is before it kind of flies by. You're not going to stop having thoughts, nor can you control your thoughts, but you can stop them from running away like a freight train. You can stop them from stacking like train car and a train car and a train car and building up this runaway freight train of thoughts that can then, just get away from you and turn into emotions. So it's hard to read everything and talk at the same time, so when I'm talking, I'm not reading. mental hacks to address anger. Anger is a big one. I used to be a very angry person. It was probably my dominant emotion. Now my dominant negative emotion is probably paranoia. But I basically got rid of most of my anger, if not all of it. And it left just through the realization of just the harm it was doing to me. We're not meant to be angry all the time. In a natural environment, you'd be angry, once in a blue moon. But now, thanks to news media and just the very complex lives that we lead, there's lots of aggressions, and now there's this whole thing called microaggressions. Like, God, who even wants to deal with that? But what you have to realize is that anger hurts you first and foremost. Anger is you credibly getting ready to signal violence because you're losing control over the situation. And so to do that, to prepare for violence, whether it's verbal or whether it's physical, you have to basically, release all these nasty hormones and chemicals in your body to tense you up for that fight or flight response. And you just can't run in that all the time. It burns you out. You lose your hair. Your skin will sag. Your metabolism will burn out. You'll have digestive problems. There's a great Buddhist saying that someone is quoting right now on my feed. I use it all the time, so I just didn't want to say it again, but I'll say it again. It's anger is a hot coal that you hold in your hand while you wait to throw it at somebody. And I think that is true. You're holding this hot coal, and it's literally burning you while you're trying to figure out, when and how hard am I going to throw it. So the best way to get rid of anger is not to say, oh, I'm not going to be angry. That kind of never works. You just have to notice every time you're angry how much it's hurting you. And then eventually, at some point, you just won't want it anymore. And when you don't want an emotion, it doesn't really arrive with the same intensity. Paranoia is I'm always concerned with downside risk. I grew up in inner urban New York City. I grew up very poor. And I grew up as a small kid being bullied. So I always am on the lookout physically, mentally. I always have backups after backups after backups on every plan. Someone asked about political correctness. Political correctness is a cancer. That's all I have to say on the topic. Don't make me angry, because I don't want to be angry. But political correctness it's just another attempt to control speech. Speech control is thought control. It's the beginning of all evil. It's the beginning of the slippery slope to hell. And it always comes disguised with good intentions. Always. There's that very old phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And we all forget it, like it's easy to glaze over. But the reality is it's fundamentally true. It always starts with good intention. Then you organize a bunch of people together. Then you start getting violent to people who don't listen to you. Then you start oppressing them, suppressing them, killing them, etc. And so, there you go. Bullied, I think everyone's bullied, but I don't. Back when I was bullied, I'm old enough that there wasn't a word for it. So that was just called being in school. I guess now it's like a big deal, but at least for my generation, everyone I got beat up in the hallways, I got my lunch money taken, I got shoved down the stairs, I have a knife wound from college, I actually got shot by a .22 caliber when I was a kid, so but I didn't call it bullied because it's not bullied, that's called being in a school in inner city New York as a kid, right? So there's a lot of crazy shit that happens, and you just kind of deal with it. Yeah, it's Gulag Archipelago. I actually haven't really watched Jordan Peterson, to be honest. I think he's fighting the good fight against political correctness, and he sounds like a very smart guy. I started reading his book, but it just wasn't that. It didn't grab me, so maybe I'll go back to it. Was it racism? No, I've been lucky enough not to encounter much overt racism in my life. I'd say probably just a handful of times, and honestly, it doesn't bother me. I mean, I was a fit, healthy young male. This country gave me a lot. I have my wits about me. So it's like there's no fair, nobody gets an even hand, no one gets a fair deal. Some people definitely have a lousy deal, but nobody gets a great deal. So you just have to play the hand you're dealt. So I don't play the victim mentality. I think it would probably be a lot worse in certain situations if I was currently a Syrian refugee or a African female. But at least for me, I can't say it was that bad. Do I procrastinate? Yeah, all the time. That's one. There's a lot of hacks around procrastination. Really, all that works for me is I basically just say, am I going to have to do this at some point or not? If I am, then I might as well get it out of the way. There's no point in procrastinating further. Yeah, there is a anti-procrastination hack that basically says, if you're procrastinating on something, then work on the second most important thing that you should be doing. The theory being, if there are two things you're procrastinating on, you at least end up working on the one that you are dreading less. One interesting approach might just be to look at, like, why am I procrastinating? What exactly is it about the situation that I don't want to do? If it's just work, then maybe you signed up for too much work. But if it's an emotional thing, if you're procrastinating because you don't want to talk to someone about something because you're afraid of what's going to happen with that outcome, with that conversation, then it's actually worth thinking through, like, why am I in conflict avoidance mode here? Why do I follow Osho? I don't follow Osho. I don't follow anybody. I read Osho. I read everybody. Osho to me was interesting because he is one of the few philosophical mystics he was very smart. He's almost like the Alan Watts of the East. He's very well read. He's very eloquent. And he just felt very real. He explains things very simply. He does throw in a little bit of woo-woo mysticism, so you can't believe everything you read from Osho. He does exaggerate. He does tell stories. But, the 60-70% that where he's basically being straightforward, he's one of the clearest speakers and thinkers on Zen and Buddhism and enlightenment, peace, self-examination, truth, and a lot of these philosophical issues. I kind of almost don't care what happened with the story of Osho. I just take what I read, for the ideas. I think you can, through ad hominem attacks, you can destroy anybody. As a recent election cycle proved, when both of our candidates, or all of our candidates, had their reputations destroyed. Where would I put $200,000 if someone gave it to me right now? It really depends on the context. It depends how old you are and how risk-taking you are. I assume you're basically saying that you want to take risks with it. I don't give investment advice, but it would probably be some combination of crypto and tech startups. Because the future is just in tech. And it has been for a while. How did I meet Kapil Gupta? He tweeted at me. Portfolio. Oh, thank you. It's very kind. Someone's calling me Osho 2.0. But I don't have the Rolls Royces and the commune. Can I recommend one Osho book? I would recommend a book called The Sun Rises in the Evening. I haven't read all of it yet. I've been going through it, but it's my favorite one so far, and I'm savoring it. I've literally been highlighting half of every page. Thoughts on vegan food technology companies? Yeah, the vegans are going to win in the end, and they're going to be insufferable. Because it's a matter of time until we can either print meat, like 3D print meat, or we can create food that tastes enough like meat that slowly, a lot of society will switch away from eating meat. And yeah, it'll have to be proven to be healthy, it'll have to be proven to be tasty, and so it might take literally 50 years or 100 years. It might have to be an entire generation growing up eating manufactured meat. But then those people are going to look back and they are going to judge us. They're going to judge our current society as the worst society that ever existed. We're going to be worse than slave owners. They're going to tear down the statues. They're going to burn down our books. They're going to get rid of our civilization because we have committed the largest Holocaust and genocide to the animal kingdom, ever. And they'll judge us with the benefit of hindsight because, of course, for them, they won't need to eat meat. They'll have food that tastes just as good or is just as nutritious and is way more bioavailable just through pure manufacturing. So they'll judge us unfairly, but they'll judge us all the same, just like we judge every previous generation. Most and least favorite thing about Silicon Valley Bay Area. Silicon Valley Bay Area has the largest concentration of smart and ambitious people that I've ever seen anywhere. There might be more somewhere else, I just haven't seen it. And that's my favorite thing about it, the people. The natural beauty is a close second, but there's a bunch of naturally beautiful places in the world. The least favorite thing is the monoculture and groupthink. Everyone thinks it's really weird, but you would think that the place where all the technology innovations done in society would have a lot more independent thinkers. I have read Finite and Infinite Games by James Cars. It's a decent book. I'm not sure it needed to be a book. I think it would have made a great blog post. A lot of questions. What makes someone smart? Well, the answer, the reality of that is unpopular answer, which is genetics is probably the biggest component according to science. The most recent data that I saw said it's well more than 50% is genetics, which is unfortunate. But that's raw IQ or general intelligence factor. Of course, there are more ways to apply your intelligence than just that, but I'm talking about the generally accepted ones. But even within that, I mean, that probably accounts for the gross differences. But even within that, I will bet that it is possible to be smarter. And I think, this is the old answer. I think intellectual curiosity. It's sort of this trait where if you're just curious as to how things work and the way they work, and you're more concerned with being right than you are, or figuring it out correctly than just being emotionally consistent. If you can just kind of discover that habit, then you put yourself in a very powerful learning curve. And generally people like that end up being drawn to books, because when you're talking to other people in everyday life, you just have to compromise way too much for everyone's ego that's there. So it's very hard to just speak truth all the time. For example, I was at a dinner party last night. I walked in a dinner party, and I wanted to have a real conversation. I wanted to talk about philosophy, life, marriage, science, death, art, technology, music. Everybody there, they were just kind of warming up, like, oh, what kind of food do you like? Do you like to travel? Right? Like just like very basic, safe kind of conversation. And it was a large enough group that I realized that I just couldn't say anything interesting without potentially offending somebody, kind of like on Periscope. So I just had to pull back on the level of the conversation that I was able to have, and I realized like a lot more truth is spoken in books than it is in conversation. So it's hard to be intellectually curious and learn through group conversations. Much better off one-on-one conversation. Much better off with books. Kanye for president. It's not up to me, and I don't root for anybody, but I think he will probably run, and he has a very good shot at winning the presidency. I think basically crowdfunding and crowd media, aka social media, have changed the presidency into a direct democracy institution. It used to be intermediated because it took $1 billion or $2 billion to run for president, and TV ads used to matter, and you needed the media on your side. But now with social media, you can create your own media, and either if you're a billionaire like Kanye or Trump, you can fund yourself, or if you crowdfund like Bernie, you can get through. So I think that there's going to be no more kind of elite candidates winning from here on out. There's going to be no more like people you've never heard of, but they went to the right schools and the right families and they paid their dues, and now it's their turn to be president, so they get to be president. I think that's gone. I think instead we're talking about a future where it's much more about celebrities. It's much more about who can handle social media. It's much more who can raise money from the crowd or is already rich. So I'm not saying it's a good thing necessarily. I'm an elite, so I don't necessarily like the populist bent that we're headed towards. But I think we're going to see celebrity presidents a lot more, and it's going to be pretty extreme swings. And I think where this ends is this eventually ends with we'll have presidents, within decades, who will be wearing cameras on them most of the time. That they walk around. You'll be able to tune into the president's channel and just watch whatever the president's up to. Yeah, politics to me was always a branch of entertainment, because at the national level, you can't change anything unless you're willing to devote your entire life to it. At the national level, you just cannot make a difference. So it's always been a form of entertainment. It's much closer to sports than it is to science or business. So I think now it's just merging completely with entertainment. Why am I not verified? I don't know. It's I never asked, they never offered, and now it's become one of those Groucho Marx things, where I don't want to be part of any club that will have me as a member. And honestly, most of the blue check marks and who are replying in my feed are sort of the least interesting people. I like having conversations. I've just noticed whenever a blue check mark replies in my feed, my blood pressure goes up just that little bit. Because most of the times they're people who think that they're really, really smart. And so they're just going to take themselves very seriously. Yeah, why do I do Periscope for self promotion? It's not really self promotion. It's just I'm kind of bored. I don't, and I like talking to smart people, and I meet them through Twitter. And people seem to get value out of my Periscopes, and it doesn't take much for me. I just get to come here, hang out with all of you, and just have a chat, just have a conversation. How do you snap your mind to focus? How do you redirect a wandering mind? Your mind isn't unfocused, it's just focused on something that another part of your mind wants it to be focused on something else. So you're having some internal self-conflict. So it's good to just basically figure out, like, why is my mind wandering? Your mind is doing exactly what you want it to do at all times. Who is the most underrated intellectual? Borges, Jorge Luis Borges, sci-fi author. Wasn't even really considered an intellectual fiction author, but he just had incredible depth in his stories. Why Sunday nights? My wife isn't around, and I have still a lot of energy, and I'm kind of bored. What would I tell my 23-year-old self? Do everything you're going to do, but with less emotion, less angst, less beating yourself up. Jesus, no, I don't think the afterlife is also run by old white Jewish men. That's a joke, obviously. I don't believe in the anthropomorphized view of deities and kind of how the universe is run. I don't think there's someone sitting up there like with a checklist judging me. I've seen no evidence of that whatsoever. Thoughts about longevity? The bad news is that the good news is we're the first generation that has a smartphone and has the internet. So wow, what an incredible thing that we got. But the bad news is I think we're the last generation before they figure out longevity. It's just taking too darn long. And at least early on, the extra years they get us will be tacked on at the end. So it's not going to be the good years. It's going to be like, oh, instead of living to 80, you live to 90. But you still have, you're an 80-something. So you might be happy inside, but your body is not working that well. Is smoking cigars the true secret to longevity? It's funny because they always like to run those articles, right? Well, two issues there. One is articles like that just get spread more often. So even though they're rare, there's a survivor bias in the article itself. But then second, I think it just shows those people are low stress. And if there's one thing that does kill you early that everyone who's older will tell you, it's stress. So chill out. You want to live longer? You actually want to make it to see longevity and the singularity? Chill out. How do we solve the incarceration problem? Incarceration is this terrible thing. It's basically, one monkey putting another monkey in a cage. You have to have some sense of punishment in society, but I'm not sure that it needs to be that punitive. There's sort of that mythology of Australia being a penal colony for Britain, and I've always sort of fantasized that maybe you could just create an island and everyone beyond a certain sentence, you just put them there, and there's like another society. It's like it's an exile solution. It's like, hey, you can't be a part of our society anymore, but we don't have to necessarily lock you in a cage and spend lots of money and be abusive towards you and make you dress in an orange jumpsuit and all of that madness. Because even though, people are saying you have to follow the laws, the problem is there's a lot of BS laws in the books. There's all kinds of law. Like, if I'm the NSA and I want to arrest you, I can arrest every single one of you. I can find something that you did that I can hang you on. So I think there's that situation you have to worry about. And then the second is just that there's no such thing as a perfect system. There's certainly no perfect government-run system. So there are a lot of there are a lot of people who end up in jail who frankly don't belong there. Tips on slowing down and having well thought out responses when speaking publicly. The thing that will fix your public speaking, I would do two things. First is record yourself and watch yourself. You'll see very clearly what your flaws are. I say and I pause too much and I use filler words too much for no reason. So that's mine. At least I'm aware of it, so it's not as bad as it used to be. The other thing is know your subject cold, and then don't rehearse, don't practice. I don't come on here with any agenda or anything that I want to tell you or any specific thing that I rehearse to talk about. If I did, then I would be busy trying to remember that, and I would be kind of lost trying to kind of make an argument. But if you know your subject, then you just talk. You just talk like you talk to a friend. You talk like you would talk to a colleague. You just talk. When I'm public speaking, like right now, I'm hearing my words pretty much at the same time as you are. You've got a little latency because of Periscope, but I don't know what's coming out of my mouth until it comes out of my mouth. Have I thought about starting a podcast? I'm going to do at least one podcast session coming up with a friend of mine who lives nearby, who's also on Periscope. Tips on marriage. Oh boy. My wife would laugh if I was giving tips on marriage, but since she's not here, I can give tips on marriage. I think marriage, no, marriage is not dead. Marriage is the institution that you enter into to have children. If you're not going to have children, then I would question, marriage. There's probably still like a, nice romantic forever aspect to it, but after the oxytocin wears off, you may regret that. But marriage is an institution that was created to have kids, and then we sort of structured all of society around it. So I think it's overall a good thing. But I would get married based on values, compatibility of values, not based on shared interests, not based on you two look great together, not based on how long you've been dating. But it's about values. Is this person going to be a good father or a good mother? Do they have the same values around charity, around family, around work, around health as you? And values is a set of things that you won't compromise on. And if the values line up, all the little things work out. And if the values don't line up, then they come out in all the little things. That's how you get all the little problems. What am I drinking? I'm drinking tea. There's a tea bag in there. Someone accused me last time of drinking wine and quit in a huff, which is fine. I don't have a problem with drinking wine. Maybe I should get a glass of wine. But right now I'm drinking tea. Why is Taleb so immature? I think that he's not immature. He's brilliant. But I think the part of the world he comes from, you have to be an angry fighter to survive, and he just takes it onto Twitter too. I'm not doing any public speaking this year. This year I'm only doing periscopes and tweets and podcasts that I control. No, I'm not going to be interviewed by anybody else. There's a very, very few exceptions, a few things I've left over from previous commitments or from work, but I'm generally just taking my entire media life into my own hands. Choose one trait: self-confidence, IQ, emotional intelligence. I think IQ can be traded for emotional intelligence. If you're really smart, you can just watch your thoughts and figure out your emotions. So I would take that. I forgot the last one. Shoot, it went by too fast. If I lost everything and had to start over, what would you prioritize? Don't trigger my paranoid side. Hopefully I have my family, so that's what matters. I would just go make some money so I could provide for us. Oh, self-confidence was the last one. Self-confidence versus intelligence. I think an intelligent person over time will end up confident because they'll just find that they're navigating the world better and the world is kind of giving them the feed. If you're intelligent, you're generally right more often than other people because you're just thinking things through a lot more. And so you'll build a self-confidence over time. It's rare to find a highly intelligent person, I think, who's older and does not have self-confidence. When they're young, for sure, but as you're older. How do I personally deal with failure? Well, the answer used to be very poorly, but these days I try not to have too many goals. So if you don't have goals, you can't fail. Can't fail to meet them. The older I get, the less sure I am. Yeah, if you're thinking, that's true. How do you deal with people who think that they're over-intelligent? You don't have to deal with anyone that you don't want to. You can just walk away. If you're married to them, well, that's a problem. If they're family, then, work around it. Tips on how to teach self-teach STEM subjects. Figure out some part of it that you're just genuinely really interested in. What's the one thing in STEM that you would do for fun? Do you like math? Some people do, not many, but some do. Do you enjoy basic physics? Do you enjoy tinkering with radios, chemistry sets? Do you like biology? Do you like computer programming? So just start with the thing you like, and then you can kind of branch out from there. Really, the trick to doing anything is first just cultivating the desire for it. And if you have the strong enough desire, you'll blaze a trail through it. Someone asked about why is math before anything? Mathematics, I think, is the language of nature. It's basically human beings reverse engineering fundamental things about nature that are encoded into nature, and so mathematics, for whatever reason, seems to do a better job, and nobody understands why. Maybe because it came from physics, but it does a better job of explaining how nature works than anything else, and abstracting it. And all STEM, ultimately, all technology is just applied science, and science is just, the study of how nature works. So if you don't speak the language of nature, you have a hard time with science, and then if you don't do science, you have a hard time with tech, and if you want to be in tech business, then it helps to know the tech and the science and the math underneath. So math is fundamental. It's not everything. There's a lot of things math can't do. So I don't mean to say it's like a panacea. And in fact, there's a famous theorem, Gödel's incompleteness theorem, that says that even mathematics as a system is either incomplete or in some ways incorrect. So math is not perfect, but math and science help you figure out what is known to be true and can be communicated as true in a giant sea of falsehood and opinion. Do humans have a responsibility? No, there's no overarching responsibility. If there was one big goal for all of us, then it would be a shitty, meaningless life. It would be like we were ants, like everyone go serve the ant queen. All right, we would all be doing exactly the same thing. We'd be drones, we'd be automatons. But the beauty of it is that there's no single overarching purpose to life that we all have to follow. We can all create our own meaning, and we can all follow our own meaning. And that's what gives us this incredible diversity of outcomes, and everyone gets to be unique. How do I do so many important things at the same time? I'm not trying to do anything important. I'm literally just doing what I feel like. And if I like it, I'll be good at it. What is a simple task you take a lot of pleasure in performing? Unfortunately, it's reading. I'm not a simplistic person that way. I like yoga and reading. Those are probably my two fallbacks. If you want to find me, I'm usually on my yoga mat with a book. Best movie you saw this year? I don't watch movies. I haven't watched them for years. I just find them to be... I watched a lot as a kid, but the thing with movies is at some point you just realize that your life is very limited. And do you want to just lose it all watching a movie? I don't know, you don't learn anything, not much. Your emotions get taken for a ride, but once they've been taken for a ride a bunch of times, you kind of know how every movie ends. And so the emotional roller coaster is going to do for you. And then at the end, you're going to realize, it doesn't actually really matter. It was just a movie. So I know movies are good for socializing. It's good for talking to other people. Maybe good for tuning out, but it just seems brainless. I'd rather read or go for a walk. Yeah, sorry, I don't even watch superhero movies. Can only one cryptocurrency survive in the end? There is a maximalist point of view. There's the famous Bitcoin maximalist. There's a bunch of Ethereum maximalists. I don't think only one currency will survive in the end. I think there will be many survivors, but I do think that the economic value will be highly concentrated in the top one. It will be a power law distribution, most likely, where the top cryptocurrency is worth more than the second through the last one put together. The second one is worth more than the third through the last one put together, and so on. So we're still, though, in a phase where we don't exactly know which one that one is. Movies are good entertainment, depending on what you like. I, yeah, entertainment. I'm not judging. I've done lots of it. I watch tons of TV. I watch tons of movies. I've read tons of fiction. I'm just over all of it. It just bores me now. All of it bores me. Thoughts on the Zuckerberg congressional testimony? Nothing will come of it. Like, this is just what all the cameras are pointed on now, and within 6 months everybody will have forgotten. Within 2 months everybody will have forgotten. It'll blow over. Whether you think it's good or bad, nothing's going to change. How do you stand out in your career when just intelligence and hard work are not enough? You must be in completely the wrong career, the wrong place. Intelligence and hard work are all that matters. And if they're not working out where you are, then you have to arbitrage it by becoming an entrepreneur, or the closest thing to an entrepreneur that your industry will tolerate. War soon? No, we seem to be in an era of peace and prosperity. Even North Korea and South Korea might be making peace, unlikely as it sounds. ISIS is basically blown up. There's some terrorism, but the ISIS owning Iraq or Syria is over. Yes, it's still worth moving to Silicon Valley. If you can, and you're in the tech industry and you want to get your big break, then it's probably the best place to be. But there are other considerations, and especially if you're in the blockchain and crypto space, then you may not need to. Contingent workforce or traditional workforce? Look, if you're young enough and smart enough, get out of the workforce concept. Forget out of the career concept. Just develop skills and do whatever you want to do at that time that'll get you paid. It's not... The idea of having a lifelong career is going away. The idea of having a single job is already gone, but even the idea of like staying in one place for 5 or 10 years is starting to go away. Silicon Valley, people move around a lot. That time frame is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. I'm an American. Someone's asking what nationality I am. How to attract money? You're not attracting money, but look, a lot of people seem to believe that money is like this evil thing. Like, if you believe it's evil, then you're never going to get it. I can't help you. There are people who think that it's all made through connections and who you know. That may be true in a very narrow set of industries where you need to get your big break. It's not generally true. If you want money, if that's what you care about, if that's what you're obsessing about, then you have to give the world something that it wants that it does not yet know how to get in sufficient quantity. So you just have to figure out what the thing is that the world wants, and you just have to be very hard-nosed about that. And there are lots of ways to figure out what that is, but you also have to be really, work really hard at it. So the only way you're going to work that hard at something is, A, you want the money, but B, you also have to like it. Because if you don't like it and you spend your entire life doing it, first of all, you're going to be miserable, and second, you actually won't even be successful because someone else who does actually like that thing naturally will outcompete you. What if basic family monthly expenses is too high to just quit a job? Entrepreneurship is not the only solution. You can excel in your current job and have some side projects that kind of help build up a better resume until you're ready to make a jump to a startup or a smaller company. So I think there are multiple ways to skin that cat. Family makes it a lot harder. Family's an obligation. And look, the point of making money is so you can have a reasonably good family life. Your family doesn't have to struggle. If you have a reasonably good family life, you don't have to go be an entrepreneur. Not everybody has to go through that struggle. Is sales a good skill? Sales is amazing. Everyone should know sales. It's a little bit more of an ability than a skill, like in the sense that it's hard to learn it when you're older. My guess is like you could probably tell salespeople, like people who are going to be good salespeople at the age of 10 or 12. I don't think you need to wait till they're 20 or 30. Now you can always train them further, and if somebody really wants to like come out of their shell, you could probably train them to be good at sales. But I think most of the really great salespeople have it as an innate ability that's determined quite early. Sorry, feel free to repeat questions if they went by and I didn't answer them earlier, because I can't even read 80% of these. They go by too fast. When does superintelligence play out? Not in our lifetimes. What is the one thing I learned from Jiddu Krishnamurti that impressed me the most? Actually, the thing that I learned was when I read Krishnamurti. He was the first of these sort of enlightenment philosophers that I'd read, and it just struck me how little I knew, how I had been completely externally focused my entire life, and there was so much that I didn't even know about myself. Do I consider my work art? I think at some level all work has an art component to it, and yeah, there's definitely an art to it. Art is generally not done for the money, and work is generally done for the money. So we tend to conflate it. So we tend to separate the two very, very neatly. But the reality is, if you're doing good, meaningful work, you're not doing it mainly for the money. That's the secondary thing. And if you're doing art, you generally have to make some money too. You got to survive. So there's always some, not always, but many times there's a there's a revenue income consideration. So there's overlaps. There are businessmen and women who have created great businesses that are works of art. Apple Computer is a work of art. Even Amazon is kind of a work of art when you think about it. Like nobody thought that like a bookstore was going to take over all of e-commerce. So I think you can definitely have art and business, and of course you can have business and art. How often do I use my phone? All the time. And now I don't feel guilty about it anymore. No more self-conflict. I just use my phone. Do I read Eckhart Tolle? I read The Power of Now very early on. It was hugely influential to me. It's a great book. I highly recommend it as a good starting point for beginners who are kind of interested in the whole consciousness philosophy thing. Naval's Guide to Great Relationships. Yeah, be totally selfish. I think when you first meet somebody and start dating them, the worst thing you can do is start pretending to be someone you're not, and liking things you don't like and doing things you wouldn't normally do. If you can't do it 50 years from now, don't do it today for somebody else, because you set that expectation, and then you have to basically break them of that later and disappoint them. So I think relationships are the one place where both people should be kind of selfish. They should do what they want. They should get what they want, because that will signal who they really are, and they just have a much higher chance of finding good compatibility. And dating tips. Yeah. I mean, obviously I goosed it a little bit to make it controversial. Favorite mental models from physics. Physics has tons. There are a lot of concepts from physics, like entropy, for example. That's a mental model that you can apply pretty broadly. If you understand how Brownian motion works, random walk, statistical mechanics, a lot of stuff in probability. Even like stories of like how physics progressed when they would the heliacal theory, where the sun is the center of the world, of the universe, versus the Earth being the center of the universe, etc. So there's a lot of good mental models in physics. There's literally, like, you open a physics textbook, every page you're going to find one. What would physics CS Naval be involved in today? Blockchains. I think it's the absolute most interesting thing happening right now. VR, AR may be as interesting when they are ready for prime time. They are not yet ready for prime time. The book Siddhartha is a beautiful story about the Buddha, and it's just really, really, really well written, and it sticks with you. And am I happy? Yeah, I'm a very happy person. But I would say that's recently, in the last decade, that I learned to be happy. I did not used to be a happy person. Yeah, that's floss in my hand. Yeah, I did not used to be a happy person. And again, happiness is one of these overloaded words that means so many things to so many people. Would I be happy without money? Not as happy, but I would think I would still be pretty happy. What would make me sad? Just physical suffering, if someone I love, or if I am going through physical suffering. Other than that, it's all just a mental construct. Do I have any thoughts on, can I meet you? No, sorry, I don't do meetings. I'm just Periscope. Thoughts on the Bhagavad Gita? I haven't read the whole thing. Beauty, how would you describe it? There's a lot of different descriptions of beauty. You know it when you see it. I think natural beauty is interesting. Like when you look at a beautiful face, or you look at a forest or a river, it's fractal. There's a lot of complexity encoded in there that you can sort of recognize. It's anyway. Beauty is a big concept. I won't waste everyone's time talking about it. Thoughts on psychoanalysis? I don't know. I've never been through it. I'm lucky to have never needed it. Life after death? I don't see any evidence. I don't think you can count on it. And in fact, I think you'll be happier and live a more fulfilling life if you are not expecting life after death. Is gaming a huge time sink for society? It's a tough one. Everything is a time sink at some level. Even though I said I don't watch movies, like even, gaming is no better than watching movies, and I've done a ton of gaming in my life. Just do what you want, as long as it doesn't hurt somebody else. Don't judge it so much. Private blockchains are kind of nonsense. Blockchain has to be public. If it's private, you might as well you have a small number of people who presumably trust each other. You can just use a database. You don't need a blockchain for that. Do you think I should propose to my girlfriend in your Periscope comments? No, because you're going to be married to her for a long time, and people are going to ask her constantly, how did he propose? How did he propose? And you're going to hear her tell that story 1,000 times over the course of your life, and you do not want her 30 years from now saying, yeah, well, there's this guy, you have to know him, he's gone now, and then there was this app called Periscope, and it doesn't exist anymore, and he couldn't think of anything better than to ask me on his Periscope broadcast. Like, you don't want to hear that story for 1,000 times. You want to have a spectacular story. Trust me, it's worth the investment just because you're going to hear that story so much. So do something special. How many genders? People have a lot of political questions. That did not used to be a controversial question with controversial answers, but now it's suddenly a controversial question with controversial answers. Funny how speech policing works. Why is everything an illusion? It's not an illusion in the sense that there really are walls around me and I really do exist, but it's an illusion in the metaphorical sense because nothing lasts. Everything disappears. So in that sense, it's kind of indistinguishable from a dream. When you wake up in a dream, everything's gone, right? I'm not saying you're going to wake up in some other reality, but I'm just going to say that this reality is going to be gone nevertheless. What are your thoughts about if we're living in a simulation? I know there's a statistical argument for us living in a simulation, but I don't see how it would change your life at all. You're not going to be able to figure it out, and it's not going to change your life in any meaningful way. It's kind of one of those questions that people just play around with. I think you would come to the same conclusions whether we are in a simulation or not. Why is my sound so low? Because I'm using my AirPods. And I'm trying to keep it down so I don't wake up people in the house. Peter Berg. Is it better to be an investor or an entrepreneur? There's an old saying on Wall Street that life is always easier on the buy side. The sell side is the one that has a product and is trying to get the money, and the buy side is the product that has the money and is exchanging for the product. And in investment versus entrepreneurship, that's investors. So life is easier. That said, it's not easy, and it's really hard business to break into, and you have to have money. So generally the model is you start out as an entrepreneur and then you end up later as an investor. Are AirPods safe? Brain tumors? Unlikely. At least all the physics I've seen says it's unlikely. And if it's going to happen, it probably would have happened by now to lots and lots of people. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Wow, there's a lot of people who think AirPods are frying my brain in the feed. There's no scientific evidence for that, people. I'm sorry to tell you. And I've looked at the science with cell phones originally, but yeah, I think it's fine. I'm not worried about it. How to find one's life partner? Go on a lot of first dates, but don't get into many relationships. Know what you want. And as Charlie Munger said, be worthy of a worthy mate. Work on yourself. AirPods are only harmful if swallowed. I think that's a good statement. How am I so optimistic about everything? Well, the cynical answer would be because my life has worked out pretty well. But the actual answer is I'm not optimistic per se. I'm just trying to be clear-eyed about the data. The data shows that the life for the average person in the world is getting better. And for me personally, I know that my life is short, so I have to interpret it in the best possible way so it can be a good life. I'm not going to get a second chance. I think that's probably it. I'm probably going to just do one more minute and then hop off. How do you remember important details, like something special your child said years ago? I think memory is really overrated. A lot of unhappiness comes from comparing current events to past events, whether better or worse. It's just either the past event was better, in which case you're bummed, or the current event is better, in which case you're trying to save it and store it, and you're just taking yourself out of the experience. So I try not to remember things. I think memory is really overrated. It's better just to live in the present. So, I take photos of my kids, but I'm not a big photo taker otherwise. Best current book? I'm really enjoying The Sunrises in the Evening, the Osho book. Also, I've got Carlo Rovelli's new book on pre-order. His last two books are great. If you haven't read those, read both of them. One's on quantum gravity, and the other one's just on general physics. Intermittent fasting is great. It works. I don't do it anywhere near often enough. I should do it more. Intermittent fasting is probably the best work to reward ratio in terms of living longer. Like you could take metformin or you could take resveratrol, but those have drawbacks or are unproven. Resveratrol. You could also do chronic caloric deprivation, but that's really difficult to do. So I think the best bang for the buck if you want to live longer and be healthier is probably the single best thing you can do. Well, maybe not the single. Okay, there are others, but it is one of the best things you can do is intermittent fasting. It's way up there. Yeah, there's a reason why it's built into a lot of the ancient religions. And actually, I would say this is the interesting part. Every time I find my weight swinging, because I do naturally tend towards gaining weight if I don't watch it. I used to be heavy. If my weight starts getting out of control, trying to change the quality of my diet doesn't work that well. Trying to change the quantity doesn't work that well. Intermittent fasting is usually what gets me back in shape. Usually what I'll do is I'll just skip breakfast and lunch the next day. So just do only dinner for 2 or 3 days in a week. And it makes a difference. You'll see a difference in just 1 week. The benefits for intermittent fasting really start after 16 hours of having not eaten, and black coffee and plain tea is acceptable. But since the benefits start at hour 16, if you only make it to hour 20, you've gotten 4 hours of benefits. If you make it to 24 hours, you've got twice as much, 8 hours of benefits. So you basically skip breakfast and lunch. That's going to give you a minimum 16-hour fast, but then if you can drag it out, you can get close to 24 hours. Are you able to balance independent thinking advice from mentors? I don't believe in mentors. I only believe in peers. I think either everyone is, the moment you start mentoring somebody else, you're talking down to them, and so you're not learning anything from them. It's just fueling your ego. And the moment that they're kind of looking up to you, they're not, they're learning they're learning too much. There was a very cynical guy on Twitter who said that every time I hear a VC giving advice or an entrepreneur, it's like saying, "Oh, here are the lottery ticket numbers that work for me." It's like a very cynical thing to say, but it's kind of true in that other people can inspire you, but fundamentally you have to learn it yourself. They can inspire you to learn it. They can help you remember it. I think the best thing another person can do for you in terms of, I'm not talking about teaching in a classroom, but just like this kind of, people think they might be learning something. The best thing I can do is inspire people by saying, "Hey, I'm happy," or "I made money," or "I figured out certain things and I'm sharing them." But to inspire them, I have to embody that. And if I don't embody it, then it's false. And I think that's true of everybody. So you're going to learn from other people based on what they embody, and then that'll inspire you. That'll inspire you to ask. That'll inspire you to listen. So in that sense, everyone can teach you something, and you can learn or not learn from anybody. Best way to learn how to learn, just read a lot. Reading worked for me. That was my hack. And you have to be into it. You have to like the topic. So read things you like. My workout routine is I do a little routine called The Happy Body by Jerzy Gregorek. You can look it up online. Will we create smart drugs? We may create drugs that make us smarter. There's a great story by Ted Chiang called Understand. It's my favorite sci-fi story of the last 2 decades. Highly recommend it. It's about someone who figures out how to make themselves smarter with a drug. How many hours do you sleep? Too little. I would sleep 7 hours if I could. I'd probably sleep about 5. Just have kids. Best source of learning for crypto is actually Twitter, but you have to follow the right accounts. Follow the scientists, not the trolls. Okay, I think that's probably it for the rest of the evening. Bitcoin private. These Bitcoin forks are all scams. All right, thank you everybody. Have a great night. Cheers.